Whenever you're ready. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Smithfield Town Council meeting tonight, Tuesday, January 6th. There were no votes taken in an executive session. Let's see. I'd like to have a moment of silence, please. Please join me in a moment of silence for Catherine Young. Catherine was our Smithfield High School music department teacher who recently passed unexpectedly. I apologize for this. She was an amazing teacher who touched the lives of so many. Thank you very much. Our prayer, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Schedule, salute to the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Emergency evacuation and health notifications.
Thank you, Council President. There's two main exits from the Town Council chambers. To the left of the stage, up the stairs will take you out the back of the building. Out the back of the council chambers, those stairs will take you out the front of the building. Just past that on the right, it's a men's facility. Up the stairs to the left is a ladies' facility. Please do not use the elevator in time of emergency.
Thank you, sir. We have presentations tonight for the Smithfield Home for the Holidays House and Doorway Decorating Contest winners. I think we have 4, right?
Yes.
Right, so we're going to read the names off. First place, or do you want to go with the last? Yeah, makes it a bit more exciting.
Yeah, there you
Oh. So third place was the Collins family at 18 Lincoln Street. Are they here tonight? Well, here's to the Collins family. Are these on the website, the pictures? Yeah, so the pictures are on the website if you get a chance to look. Amazing displays. Second place was the Souvet family, 8 West Prospect Street. Randy, have them stay up. Thank you. And first place was the Storty family, 6 Carlton Trail. And then we also had a Holidays Doorway Decorating Contest, and first place was the Marcella family, 5 Josephine Drive. Thank you for doing that. It's nice to have that in the community. Moving on to minutes. Move that the minutes of the December 5th, 2023 executive session meeting held pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws, Section 42-46-5A1, personnel to interview Deanna Mills and Lisa Belligerin for a possible appointment to a town board or commission. In Rhode Island General Laws, Section 42-46-5A2, existing litigation, case number PC 2019-10870. Town of Smithfield versus State of Rhode Island be approved as recorded and sealed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Item B, move that the minutes of the December 5th, 2023 open session meeting be approved as recorded.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
There was one correction on here that we didn't talk about. It was just in regards to the times for the peddling got switched on the minutes, so we'll just switch them back, just so everyone knows.
Thank you.
Yep.
There was also on page 16, Jay, about the canceling the December 19th meeting. The vote, I don't think, is recorded on there, so we want to correct that.
Thank you. All those in favor of those corrections?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 7, consider, discuss, and act upon the following possible appointments and reappointments. The Boyle Athletic Complex Building Committee appointment.
Mr. President, I move that the Smithfield Town Council appoint Glenn Castiglia to replace Jason Gove on the Boyle Athletic Complex Building Committee.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public hearings. Item A, conduct a public hearing to consider and act upon zoning ordinances amendments to section 4.4, supplementary use regulations, section 4.3, table of uses to add a new use category entitled battery energy storage facility. I declare this public hearing open. Anyone from the public would like to get up and speak? They're more than welcome.
I'd like to give a little summary of it first, Mr. President, if I may. This amends the table of uses, section 4.3 of the Smithfield zoning ordinance by adding a category for battery energy storage facilities. This ordinance would restrict such facilities to the industrial and planned corporate zones and also require the issuance of a special use permit. The ordinance will also prohibit the locating of a battery storage facility within 500 feet of a residential structure, require a non-climbable fence around the facility, require screening from public and adjoining property view, require an emergency response plan, require a quantitative risk analysis, and require an environmental assessment that includes effects on wildlife habitats and groundwater caused by both normal operations and in the event of a chemical leak or fire, and also require a decommissioning plan. Construction would also be prohibited in the absence of public water availability, both at the site and within 200 feet of the property lines. The reason that Councilwoman Toppy and I have submitted this ordinance is our concern about the effects of fires that may occur at these such facilities. As you know, or as you may or may not know, a battery cell creates heat that sometimes cannot be dissipated, which and causes what they call a thermal runaway, and the temperature increase to the cell and the adjacent cells to create a cascading effect. There were 3 fires at facilities in upstate New York last summer, prompting the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, to appoint a working group to inspect all of these battery facilities throughout the state. One of these fires burned for 4 days and prompted a shelter-in-place recommendation for several hours due to the resulting toxic emissions. Workers, first responders, and residents can be exposed to such emissions caused by the heating of the chemicals in the batteries. And of course, such fires can also cause groundwater contamination. We recently added, since we scheduled the public hearing, the provision that the applicant must provide an environmental assessment that includes any effects on wildlife habitats and groundwater caused by both normal operations and in the event of a chemical leak or fire, and that no storage facility may be constructed in the absence of public water availability for both the site and parcels within 200 feet of the subject parcel. Now, grid-sized battery storage facilities are relatively new to Rhode Island. There is little guidance, believe me, very little guidance regarding the safe siting and operation of these facilities. When I say guidance, I'm talking about guidance from the state. So through this ordinance, we are seeking to ensure that these types of facilities are only constructed in appropriate locations. Residential neighborhoods are not appropriate locations for these facilities. and that they are only constructed with the planning required to ensure their safe operation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
Thank you, Council. Mike Phillips, Town Planner. There are other amendments included along with the battery energy storage facility.
Like, we're gonna do them separately.
Okay, all right. Okay. I guess it's appropriate. I just want to make sure that added the two new sections, G and H, the ones that Councilman Ionati mentioned.
Yes.
So they're subsections G and H. So that should just be noted that they're added.
Right. I think it was H, just H from the last hearing. We already had G in there.
Okay,
last
all right. No, you're right. You're correct. Sorry. Thank you.
This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak, just leave your name and address. Give your name and address.
Good evening, Council. Jim Bussum, Chairman, Zoning Board, 2 Karen Ann Drive, Smithfield. Mr. Arnatti, I'd like to thank you and commend you for being astute enough to pick up on the dangers of these battery facilities. They certainly do not belong in the residential zones. The industrial or corporate planning zone is where they should be. Thank you for that. And the Chairman of the Zoning Board endorses this adoption of this law. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Tom Hodgkins, 200 Fordham Pike. I'd like to thank you as well for introducing this. I think it's needed. It's another example of a threat of industrializations of our neighborhoods, which is a threat that came with the introduction of solar panels in the open spaces that those have taken. I second Councilman Ionati's comments on the fires. There have been several fires. New York State actually put in a moratorium last year on building any new battery energy storage facilities because of the threat of these fires, while they tried to determine what regulations were appropriate. Also, in consideration of the fires, in the release of toxins from those, it's my understanding that the protocol, should a fire occur, is that you have to let it burn out. So if we have one of these in town, we can be ensured that the thing is going to burn for hours or days, and that anybody living around there is going to be put in a shelter in place. They're going to be told to close all their doors and windows and let the fire burn out because of the threat of the chemical release. Because of that, I think it would be warranted for the ordinance to have a greater setback requirement than the 500 feet. The way I read it, I think it's 500 feet from the residential zone. I think given the threat of the fires, and especially those of us with well water, if you were to put one of these adjacent to somebody's house who has well water, they may never be able to pump well water again should a fire happen at one of these. So I think that would be warranted for a greater distance there. I'd also ask the council to consider last year, when there were amendments to the solar ordinance made, I'd ask the council to consider adding language to the ordinance which would require an applicant to submit information regarding any clearing of land or trees or so forth that needed to be done to connect that facility to the utility. And that was aimed largely at preventing the situation that happened on Log Road, where 50 or 60 trees were taken down to connect that facility to the grid. And my suggestion on that would be that the language would be along the lines of that an applicant must provide a thorough explanation of any transmission lines, access or upgrade required as a result of the project, including but not limited to the route starting and endpoints, potential impact to street trees, and right-of-way width. And also that the applicant must provide a thorough explanation of any new or proposed upgrades to electrical substations that are related to the proposed project. Information necessary is including but not limited to location, screening, setback, and noise impacts. I think the concern is the same on the battery energy storage facility as it is for a solar facility, where both of those are going to be needed to connect to the utility and may require more than what's there presently if a facility doesn't exist there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Seltzer, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'd love to get your opinion, being the fire chief. If you have a brief comment you'd like to make.
So I think the comment right now is, there's a company who's in the process of trying to bring these into the state. We're supposed to meet with Cranston, Johnston, us and the state fire marshal's office to go over the dangers, and hopefully for the state fire marshal to come up with what regulations these facilities may fall under. Even though we already have a fire code in place, there may be some other special regulations that may apply. Unfortunately, that meeting got canceled with us a couple of weeks before it was supposed to occur, and they've never gotten back to anybody. So there's different ways that they put these facilities together. There's different proposed extinguishing systems for them. So there's a lot of variables that go into play, and without knowing exactly what they're going to bring into the town, I think it's important that the appropriate mitigation efforts are part of the proposal that meet the requirements of the state. And quite frankly, right now, we follow NFPA, but they really haven't met with the marshal's office to really, and I know that, these things are popping up all over the country, and as stated, there have been fires with them, and battery fires are more difficult to fight, just like the batteries that are in these electric cars now. So it's a new challenge for the fire service, and we don't have a lot of experience nationally with it, but it's a challenge. So it's one of these things that I think you have to go in cautiously with, as far as if somebody's looking to come into your community, and making sure we have the state fire marshal and appropriate safeguards are in place. And I think that should be part of the deciding factor, that it will be safe for the community.
Thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Kenneth Souza, 2 Williams Road. This is not my area of expertise, but Councilman Ionati, is 200 feet enough to be away from water? I don't know.
I think the 200 feet came into play because that's our normal notice requirement to abutters of property.
Okay.
So we are banning them completely from residential areas, so it would not be put into a residential area.
Okay.
And I don't think we would have, there are very few places where these can actually be put. There has to be a connection to the transmission line, so I don't think we saw any areas where there was anything adjacent to a residential either. But there is 500 feet of a residential structure right here, put in here. But, that would be one of the things they have to consider. Groundwater contamination is one of the issues that would have to be considered in the application for the special use permit.
That brings up my second question. I heard that there are some issues with the substation that is almost at the max in Smithfield. So is that going to cause any issues with the Rhode Island Energy substation? Because you mentioned it, I think one of the other people mentioned that they're going to have to tap into the substation for electricity of some way. Has that been looked at all?
Well, are you talking about a particular project?
Well, that everybody's been mentioning tying into the electric
Right.
substation. My understanding is
Right.
it's getting close to the maximum, and they're going to be upgrading it in the next couple of years. I don't know. I mean, I just heard 2 people, yourself and someone else, talking about it. The third point is there's obviously gases, and as the chief said, there's fires. There's a lot of things that could happen. Is in the new ordinance, are we going to require for them to have a specific bond or an insurance requirement so that if people are having to move out of their homes or out of their whatever, that they don't, get any financial harm because of something that happened on this property. Is that being talked about or thought of? Because otherwise, who's going to pay for it? People going to hotels, or if there's damage to their property and things of that nature. He's
Yeah, that would
he's
be a
asking
civil,
counsel.
that would be according to our town solicitor, no, that would be a civil remedy.
Good idea, though, Ken.
But it's a good idea. I mean, we have bonds for other projects that planning.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
So, I mean, it's something that they can consider part of the ordinance.
That would be my suggestion, so there's no harm to residents or even commercial property as well, if it's going to be near commercial property. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can't the zoning board also require the posting of a bond?
They can impose restrictions on any approval of any
Right.
special use permit.
Right.
Hello.
Hi, Cynthia Mulvey, Waterview Drive. In my Googling of the subject of lithium battery storage facilities, I do not see any inherent regulation in Rhode Island. I would like to ask the planner if his criteria for accepting a planning proposal includes making sure that the utility is in fact sanctioned or regulated by the state of Rhode Island. Mr. Phillips, I am asking you, sir, if you have,
Oh, excuse
May
me.
I?
You need to speak to the council and then.
okay, if you would ask Mr. Phillips the question as to whether or not Smithfield, as he was quoted in the Observer saying that we are required to accept the siting of utilities in this town. I would like the ordinance to state that no unregulated utilities be allowed to even bother to submit a proposal. I think that regulation is key, and I don't think that this is necessarily a well-vetted venture. And I would also like you to ask the planner if he has vetted the background of the vendor developer as to their wherewithal financially. Are they in a financial position to oversee the decommissioning, eventual decommissioning of such a facility? And are they required to be responsible into perpetuity for the administration and safety considerations post-operative?
This is about a certain development, then that is a different matter. This
This is about this facility.
This is
And
about
I
this
would like the
ordinance.
planner to exercise precaution when he is accepting proposals
Yes.
to require them to be regulated by the state and federal agencies that are responsible for that, for our protection. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Hi, Kathy DeLuca, Smith Avenue. I just have a question on the fire protection aspect of this. I'm not quite sure. Would this require additional training for the fire department? Do you already have the means necessary to deal with this type of?
That definitely requires additional training.
So who pays for that additional training, or what, does that come from the town? Who takes care of that?
I mean, this is something, this issue is going to have to be addressed at the state level legislatively, because this is all new territory.
Right.
And, these are questions that haven't been thought out yet, but it's going to have an impact on the local cities and towns.
Right.
So this is all going to have to be legislated
Okay.
at the state
So
level.
nothing will be done until that regulations are put in place from the state?
Well, no, there is an application pending before the planning board right now that's under existing regulations, but there is the reason why we're acting tonight to update our ordinances is because there's nothing at the state level to give us any guidance as to how you would treat these type of uses. And obviously we have an obligation to protect our residents and their health, safety, and welfare
Correct.
through these type of ordinances.
Okay. So I was just curious to know if anything had been thought about that yet.
Is that something we can look at if the application is approved, as far as how that would be funded or whatever? Firefighter training.
I mean, the chief
Yeah, he can
can
look at that,
speak
yeah.
to.
I just think real quick, typically when somebody comes in with a proposal like that, we ask, as part of the deal of them coming into the community, we ask them to provide the funding and the training for us. So that's typically how it's handled. And I believe we have a little bit of leeway with the National Fire Protection Association code that we use. There's some mandates and there's certain things we need to provide to the communities get safe. So we kind of have a little bit of leverage over it.
Great,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Good evening. Ada Duffney, 156 Mountaindale. So I'm going to be living directly across the street from
Excuse me, miss, could you bring the mic down? We can't hear you.
I'm very nervous. I've never
Take your
been
time.
a public speaker, but I needed to come to this meeting tonight because I need for you guys to really, really look at this. I listened to the meeting, the last meeting that you guys had, and one of the things that really stood out to me, I don't recall which one of you actually asked the company, have you built one of these before? And the woman that stood up, well, let's see, we have different projects, some further along than this, some a little further behind. But they did not say that they had already built some of these things. I do not want to be a guinea pig with such a dangerous thing across the street or in our neighborhood. As the crow flies, 1 mile one way, there's a elementary school. Down the street, there is a library. Children play and read books and do what kids do in the library. And there's another high school as the crow flies, 1 mile away. If this thing catches fire, we are all screwed. You have to let that burn. We all have well water. Everybody there has well water. The water is going to be ruined. I don't care how many bonds you put in, how much money you throw at this project. This is our home. I chose to live in a quiet neighborhood like that because I don't want to live in an industrial park. And this is what I am afraid is that this is what that's going to become. Our property values are going to drop. I know I don't want to live in a place with a ticking time bomb across the street from me. Nobody's going to want to pay what my house is worth for me to move out now. So these are things that might not affect you directly because you might not live so close. But sooner or later, if something does happen, it will affect everybody in Smithfield. So I would really, really encourage everybody here to think about even allowing something like this to come in. Again, as you can tell from my voice, I'm very nervous. This is not something that I am ever comfortable doing. But please consider just not doing this. This is, like I said, I listened to the meeting several times just to make sure that I heard what I heard. And she definitely said they did not.
That was a planning meeting, correct?
It was the planning
Okay,
meeting.
yeah.
And she did say, I had it all written down, but I was so nervous that I forgot everything.
Right.
But she did say, oh, we do have some projects, some further along than others. That tells me I understood her perfectly. No, we've never done this. So here we are. We're all going to be guinea pigs to this. If they run out of, if they haven't done it, they probably don't know how to do it. Even if they do know how to do it, like some of the people, said, let's say nothing ever happens, this thing works out. How are they going to get rid of it later? So we're going to have this horrible eyesore. And the other day, I took a walk up there. It's all ledge. It's all ledge up there. So if they're going to put 8.7 acres of batteries up there, imagine the blasting that's going to happen there. We all have well water. I've known of people that have had blasting in smaller scale near their home, and they had to dig another well because the water went another way. Who's going to pay for that? I don't care how many bonds you have. Again, I don't care how much money you throw at people. That is not going to. I love my area. I love my home. I love where I live. I don't know if you guys have driven down Montedale. It's a really quiet, quaint. The animals, just the other day, I counted 60 as I'm doing dishes, walking behind my house. That's what I want to live in. That's why I bought there. Just please consider not having that there.
Thank you.
Anthony, can we put something in there that restricts them from coming to Smithfield? Or is that illegal?
You're trying to locate it in the appropriate zone. You can't prohibit it completely.
It's not what I asked. Why can't we eliminate it completely?
It'd have to be an agenda item, wouldn't it?
I mean,
Oh,
this is, I mean, obviously this is a legislative decision on the town council. If you do that, obviously, you run the risk of somebody challenging. I mean, certain uses are prohibited right now, like, I mean, you can't have canneries and things of that nature in the town. So there are certain uses that are prohibited in every zone. And, you know, it's something that you can consider legislatively, but it also obviously can open you up to some sort of litigation, because if you basically have to make a choice between the uses you're permitting in your zoning ordinance, and are they compatible with existing land uses? So in this particular case, this is more of an industrial use than a residential use. So you're locating it in an industrial zone. And Mike can basically tell you how much industrial land is out there. And based on these amendments, it would be strictly limited to an industrial zone. So the question is where in town can you locate it? But it would be far away from any residential property. But again, legislatively, you can prohibit. It's a legislative decision, but is it more compatible with some existing uses? Do you run the risk of being challenged later on? Absolutely.
Well, I think that when you look at it countrywide and what happened in New York, I think they would have a hard time winning that case. I mean, I've been here all my life. I don't want battery storage facility in Smithfield at all. That's why I asked that question.
And this is something that definitely needs state legislation as well.
Well, I mean, obviously, we can't do state legislation here right now, you know? I'd rather, for me, I'd rather roll the dice and let them sue us.
And that's the prerogative of the council. Legislatively, this is a legislative decision. So basically, the way the amendment reads tonight, it's prohibited in every zone except a.
No, I don't want no exceptions.
No, I know, but I'm just explaining to the audience.
Game over.
I'm explaining.
Oh, let me just say something. Ideally, that's what Vice President Ionati and I wanted to do. We don't want them either. We wanted to ban it, but at the recommendation of exactly what Anthony said, we left it with industrial zones. I mean, that was the goal, but, you know, so.
Yeah, I'd like to not have them in this town at all, because I think a fire, you know, one of the speakers was talking about how it affects the neighborhood, but it would affect the whole town, believe me, when we're talking about the types of chemical releases. So I would like to ban it throughout the town.
Correct.
But we've been advised that could cause potential litigation problems. Maybe we should just take the risk, because the risk of fire is so great that, you know, maybe we should take the risk of litigation.
Well, potential.
Rather than having to evacuate the town, you know.
Well, exactly. The potential is the potential. The potential in anything. I mean, you have a motion? I'll make the motion that we ban it altogether.
Anthony,
You're still in the public hearing stage. So
Right.
if
Yeah, I think
anybody
she
else
wants to
has to
say
speak,
something.
would like to speak on it, then you can close the public hearing and take a vote.
hello.
Hi, Carrie Colpack, 176 Mountaindale Road. No one's mentioned it's going right next to a natural gas pipeline, which adds to the danger if there's fires. It could just totally explode. And I don't want to be living near that. Right across from it, it's something that's, I agree with her, it just, it's something that shouldn't be there. And I don't know, I just wanted to mention that because nobody brought that up. And I think that's a big concern, being next to a natural gas pipeline. I mean, if that thing explodes, we've had people go up there with vehicles and try to ram the pipes over. Who knows what's gonna go on up there? I've got people going up there at 2 o'clock in the morning and coming down. There's somebody up there constantly. It's just a dangerous situation.
Thank you.
Wanted to add that.
Anthony, can you speak to whether this ordinance, whether it's passed or not, if it would really affect the application that's already in? Or if Mike Phillips could,
That's a sort of,
That's a
the
planning
application
board?
that's in, that's a planning board issue right now.
Right.
It's in,
so this wouldn't
under,
really, yeah,
under certain regulations that are in place.
yeah. Any further comments about banning it in the, which I'm for, but
Listen, it's a legislative decision. If somebody wants to challenge the ordinance down the road, they have the ability to challenge the ordinance.
yeah.
As far as industrial property, is Mike Phillips here? Where is he? Oh. As far as industrial property, Mike, it's left in the town, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest area we have of industrial is around the airport. The whole airport property around that is industrial.
It's undeveloped or developed?
It's undeveloped, but it's airport property, so it's not likely to be developed for anything but the airport. So, and we have industrial parks throughout town, off of 44, off of Pleasant View, near the highway garage, small industrial parks, or Farnham Pike, and, a couple of them up along Farnham. So, but they're primarily developed, they're already developed with structures.
Okay.
So there's very little vacant industrial land.
All right.
And, the plain corporate zone is basically up around Fidelity. There's large tracts there, and it is close to the power line. That's why I included the plain corporate. There's no residential allowed in it. And it's, has the power line corridor running right through it, so.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Hello.
Hi, Lisa Belargin, Riverside, Waterview Drive. Wouldn't the proximity to the power line, natural gas pipeline, get this knocked out of court?
That's a
easily?
whole, that's a whole, as far as whatever is pending right now before the planning board, that's one of the factors that they'd have to take into consideration, obviously, at that stage. Right now, an application's been submitted before the planning board for a master plan. It's pending. No hearing's been scheduled yet, obviously.
Couldn't you seek injunctive relief on the business and special cause calendar for this?
No, it'd have to go through the administrative process
Okay,
first.
just wondering.
Yeah, thank you. Any more discussion?
Oh, sorry, didn't see you. Grace Toppy, 20 Alpine Ridge. I totally support the prohibition of any of this kinds of facility. We are in uncharted waters, and let someone else learn from mistakes. Let us not be the ones that do this, have something happen like what happened in New York, and then have to suffer the consequences to be safe. And I think it's better to be safe and take chance of litigation. And so I think it's a wonderful idea, and I support that. So please prohibit any of this kind of facility. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jim Ignatius, Sprague Street. I got a question about, years ago, we had a tire facility in our town that had, the best estimates, 15 to 30 million tires. And the idea was, if this thing ever caught fire, it would burn for not days or weeks, it could burn for months. They also talked about having to evacuate Smithfield. It became a Superfund site. if you remember.
Still dealing with it.
If this facility caught fire, would that become a Superfund site?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, this is all uncharted territory. I mean, these batteries, I believe, Mike would know the answer. I believe there's only one of these battery storage facilities in the state right now, maybe in Burrville. And I don't know the extent or the size of it.
What would Smithfield's responsibility be when it come to paying for cleanup?
Good question.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that points to the heart of the problem here, that the state has kind of left the fields to the cities and towns and provided us with virtually no guidance on these types of facilities.
Okay, second round. Two things came up as I'm sitting here listening to all of this. With all due respect, don't get caught like we have in other situations in Smithfield to count the number of acres that we have that are undeveloped that are zoned for industrial. They could buy a facility and tear it down. Okay, so that's really what you all need to look at. Okay, because they could tear down a warehouse or whatever is an industrial area and create more land to put this. The second thing, I appreciate what you said, Counselor, about civil lawsuits, but that costs the town money if something happens. I think you really, if you are going to allow it, which I think you shouldn't, you need to have some extra insurance bond that we don't have to sue them to get money. That's litigation. Let them put up a bond and go after the bond or whatever legal insurance. Okay, thank you.
It might actually be worth just banning us, because if you consider the application's already in, so if that goes in, I'm not going to put in another one, which I encourage all of you to go in front of the planning board if you're against it, because it'll, they make the decision. So I probably would support a ban.
Anybody else want to?
Anybody else? We'll close the public hearing. Pleasure of the council.
I move that we ban all battery operations in the town of Smithfield.
So is it amending, so is it approving the ordinance with that amendment? Adding.
We don't need the ordinance then if we ban it, do we?
You need it, yeah.
What's that?
Okay. Okay, so your motion is specifically to amend the proposed zoning ordinance by prohibiting battery energy storage facilities in all zones.
Correct.
Mike, if I may add, just changing 21 to 20 on the table of uses, that has to be in the motion too.
Rachel, can you repeat that?
Under the table of uses, it should be battery, and instead of 21, it should be 20. It's just the wrong number was put by accident.
So instead of D21, it should be D20 to line up with the continuation from the solar items. It was just off by a digit.
Okay, so that's a correction. Right. Included with the motion would be a definition of a battery energy storage facility, because we have to put a definition in. And we have the definition at 4.4 D-21. And that's in the preamble, D-21, before we get to the letter A. We also would, of course, amend our table of uses to prohibit battery energy storage facilities in all zones.
So moved.
Second.
Just one other piece in the same section on the 4.4, that to be D20 as well. That could be part of your motion.
Right, so that would be D20 as well.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Part two of the public hearing on A is Conduct a public hearing on section, nope, I'm sorry, yeah, there is 9.4.8, Table 3, Economic Growth Overlay District Land Uses. Is it sponsored by?
No, it's
No,
not.
okay.
Can you open
Yes.
this?
Okay. Open the public hearing.
Good evening, councilors. Again, Mike Phillips, Town Planner. The proposed revisions to the Table of Uses, Section 4.3, and the Growth Overlay Table of Uses. This is all related to the legislative changes that have taken place as of January 1st. We've been advised by a consultant that we're going to be working with that part of the new legislation requires that all special use permit uses have objective criteria that they can be judged by when it goes to the zoning board. And absent any of this criteria, the use would be considered allowed by right. So the recommendation has been made to us that we change all those special use permit uses to prohibited uses until we can, come up with objective criteria. And we're going to be working with a consultant and with the planning board to come up with, we're going to take a look at all these uses. Some of them we may say they could be permitted. Others, we're going to have to develop some criteria for them. So it's basically all the ones, starting with greenhouses at A9, all the way through J5, heavy industrial in the 4.3. And then in the growth overlay uses, basically all the special use permit uses in that section don't have criteria. And that starts from two-family dwelling all the way down to cinemas with greater than 320 seats. The next section, section 4, has to do with adding some objective criteria to 3 of the retail use categories, G22, G23, and G24. We've added some criteria there that we think will pass muster. One of them, I'm sure some people will be happy to see, is adding a provision for bollards and other protections for pedestrians along retail storefronts. So that's basically a summation of what these changes entail. And like I said, we'll be working over the next few months with the planning board and our consultant to come up with criteria for these and/or, coming to you with a recommendation, hopefully in the next few months to amend the ordinance again.
Mike, I already spoke with you today, but for the record, I just want to confirm that these are just affecting the areas in the economic growth overlay district and not the entire town, correct? I'm sorry, in section 3.
Section 3, yes, is just the growth overlay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So what happens if somebody comes in with an application for one of these uses? We just have to tell them it's not permitted anywhere in the town because we don't have any regulations on it?
At the current time, yes.
Yep.
It's a prohibited use right now.
It's a prohibited use. So they could apply to the zoning board for a use variance and still have that ability.
Right. They can still apply for a variance. And the reason for that is because of the state law, which took effect on January 1st, which stated that if we did not have regulations, that the use, the supplemental use permit would be deemed granted.
Well,
automatically.
It would be permitted.
It would be permitted.
Yeah, permitted, right.
Whatever the use it is would be permitted.
Right, correct.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to speak on this? We'll close the public hearing. Pleasure of the council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Although, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Item B, this is to schedule a public hearing on February 6, 2024, to consider and act upon zoning ordinance amendments to section 4.3, table of uses, to add a new use category entitled wind energy facilities, and section 5.10, inclusionary zoning. This is sponsored by council members Rachel Toppy and Michael Ionati.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll,
Oh, my,
Council,
yeah, I'll be,
I'm going to open the public hearing.
oh,
and
sure,
then
sure,
you
of
can
course.
speak.
well, we'll just schedule, this is just to schedule the public hearing. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on this. First of all, on the inclusionary zoning section, and I'll let Councilwoman Toppy talk about the wind energy section. Inclusionary zoning requires that all housing projects in Smithfield of 6 units or more include an affordable housing component to it. These amendments were approved by the Planning Board on December 21st, 2023, and they'll require that housing projects of 6 units or greater consist of 40% affordable units. Currently, Smithfield requires that all such projects contain 20% affordable units. The amendments to the Rhode Island inclusionary zoning statute, which took effect on January 1st, require that the number of affordable units be raised to at least 25%. So we basically, the amendments actually also require that we produce two market rate units for every affordable unit. It gives a developer an opportunity to do that. So in effect, the maximum of affordable units is 33%. The state has set a ceiling on that after requiring us to try to meet a 10% affordable goal, which to me is contradictory. The amendments approved by the Planning Board would also eliminate the ability of developers to make payments to the town in lieu of building the affordable housing, and also for donating land in lieu of building affordable housing. Now, our town planner has estimated that under our present zoning ordinance, we're not going to be able to reach our 10% goal of 10% deed restricted affordable housing in Smithfield until the year 2060. In the meantime, Smithfield is at the mercy of the comprehensive permit process, which eviscerates our zoning by providing very large density bonuses to developers. The state has increased these density bonuses substantially under the new statutory amendments, which took effect on January 1st. In order to make meaningful progress toward our 10% affordable housing goal, developers have got to be willing to build more affordable units, especially after being granted these lucrative density bonuses. So that's why we want to increase our requirement for affordable housing in these large projects, because otherwise these large projects get built, we increase our housing stock, and we keep chasing that 10%. We never get there because our housing stock is so much bigger once we have these big projects approved. Projects where we can't, which we can't control where they put them. You can put condominiums in 2-acre zoning. For example, the Sand Trace project is 160 units. That was put in a 2-acre R80 zone. Now, also more affordable housing will also ensure that children of our current residents will be able to raise families of their own right here in Smithfield. We have children that grow up here in Smithfield. They'd like to stay here. They love the town, but they just can't afford it. They can't afford the housing here. So we do want to have more affordable housing here in town for our residents.
Thank you. I'll just make a brief comment about the wind portion. Again, this is just to schedule a public hearing. This item was sponsored by Vice President Ainati and myself to get the ball rolling in hopes of ultimately passing a zoning ordinance amendment that would protect Smithfield residents against the potential dangers of wind energy facilities, along the same lines of the battery storage ordinance tonight and the previously passed large-scale solar ordinance amendment this year, or last year rather. It is critical that we get these types of protections on the books because it can leave residents, businesses, and natural areas that we love so much at the mercy of these industrial developments. And I do thank the planning board, who with a 7-0 vote at their December 21st meeting approved this amendment. And considering what happened this evening with the battery storage, we might have to look at doing something differently with that as well.
Well, I think we're going to look at, I've asked the town planner to look at all of our energy siting because we want to make sure that, a nuclear power plant can't be built in a residential area. So our zoning statute needs to be revised from top to bottom. We need to look at that. We shouldn't have these surprises popping up all the time. And so we are seeking a grant from the state of it's a $75,000 grant to match up the changes that took effect on January 1st with respect to the housing amendments to our zoning law and to our comprehensive permit, our comprehensive plan. And I think as part of that, we might want to expand that to revise our entire zoning ordinance with a special emphasis on where these public utilities can be located.
Thank you.
Brandy, before we have that public hearing on the wind issue, I think the map that we currently have that I was given, I think is outdated. So we might not need an ordinance on the wind issue because of FAA, because they did expand the runways and now we are accepting small jets in that there, because back probably early 2000s, when they were going to put something up on Lime Rock, the FAA denied it. And then also on the Maui project, on the top of the hill, they were gonna put a wind turbine up there. And they nixed that idea too because of the planes. So can we get an updated map? And maybe there's no need for this ordinance if it all encompasses Smithfield and the flight patterns. Thank you.
So, Mr. President, I move that the town council schedule a public hearing on February 6th, 2024, to consider adopting amendments to the Smithfield zoning ordinance pertaining to wind energy facilities and inclusionary zoning.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Item C, schedule a public hearing on February 6, 2024, to consider and act upon the adoption of the capital improvements program plan for years 2025 to 2044.
Thank you, Council President. Before us is a memo from the Finance Director documenting the basic information to do with the capital plan, which was provided to the council members tonight. And as part of the scheduling of the public hearing will be posted on the website for everyone to view. So we're just asking the council at this point to schedule the public hearing for February 6th.
Good evening, Council President Paul Santucci, 10 Appletown Road. Can I suggest that the council has a work session with the either the BFRB and or the Capital Plan Committee before this goes to a public hearing? I think that would just give residents the ability to digest that massive packet, which if that's what Town Solicitor Galone has in front of him, it's probably pretty big. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a deadline to bring this?
Well, it's supposed to be in February. It's supposed to be approved per the charter state language, as well as that there was the hearings and members from the council and other aspects that are on the capital committee that put this together, as well as representation from the Budget and Financial Review Board.
Yes.
Tom Hodgkins, 200 Farnham Pike. The proposed motion says that the plan will be provided to the council before the hearing. When will it be provided to the public?
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure of the council.
So moved.
Second, I would also like to mention that, when we get this package, when we have the package, when we vote on it, we'd also like to come up with some ideas as to how to fund it. Because, I'm on the capital committee, and I think I think some of these items that are in the capital improvement plan, as opposed to past years, are more than, it's not just a wish list. There are some serious infrastructure projects that need to be done in this town, not only with the Public Works Department, the school buildings. We need to really look at these buildings. So we need to kind of come up with a plan to fund the capital improvements and not just, stick this plan in a drawer and forget about it.
Okay, thank you. We have a second? We have a motion in a second. I'll just read the next one. Pleasure of the council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item D, schedule public hearing on February 6, 2024 to consider and act upon Code of Ordinance amendments to section 312, streets and sidewalks, to add Article 4 entitled Vehicle Impact Protection Devices, sponsored by Councilmember John Tassoni Jr.
Mr. President, can we move that to February 20th, please? There's a little bit more work that needs to be done on it.
Thank you. Is there a vote on that and just table?
Just table, we can just put it on. Hearing a vote.
Councilman, you're trying to schedule the public hearing. I do table it to schedule the public hearing at the next
Schedule
meeting.
It was supposed to be February 6th. I want to move it to the 20th.
So you still want to schedule the public hearing and not
Correct.
table that?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not, it's different.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I did not vote yet.
All right.
I think that the ordinance itself requires a lot of revision. I think there are things in there that I would not support, but I don't think that it was intended, you intended to put them in there. So I would like to just, like to amend the motion to just table it. And then at our next meeting, we'll schedule when the public hearing should be. So we're not voting on something that's been put out to the public. And, I think there are a lot of errors in there that need to be corrected. And that I think it needs to be reviewed by the town solicitor as
Yes.
well.
You're correct.
So we have to vote on the first motion, then, right?
Right.
I rescind my motion.
Noted.
Rescind my second.
I rescind my vote.
Move to table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item E, conduct a public hearing to consider, discuss, and act upon approving the renewal of the intoxicating beverage license as listed as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations, local ordinances, and a certificate of good standings from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation. There are there's a few of them on here, so I'll open the public hearing. How do we stand on these? I'm just waiting. Okay. Any discussion?
Is the trap on here? No.
We close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we accept it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item F, consider scheduling a show cause hearing on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, to consider, discuss, and act upon the possible suspension, revocation, or other sanction regarding the listed liquor license due to non-renewal or non-compliance with the conditions of renewal. They are Cedar Spill, Frank and John from Italy on the Water, Copperfields Bar and Grill, Crudo, Don El Diablo Tequila, Tavalla Wine Bar, Tucson Grill, Rocco's Pub and Grub, and Val's English Tea and Pie Shop.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Lynn, is there anything you'd like to say about this, or are we all set with this? Okay. Okay.
Have to
thanks.
issue summonses.
Oh, sure,
I got the
okay.
list today.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item G, consider scheduling a show cause hearing on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, to consider, discuss, and act upon the possible suspension, revocation, or other sanction regarding the listed victualling only licenses due to non-renewal or non-compliance with the conditions of, this is for Smithfield Fitness.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item H, conduct a public hearing to consider, discuss, and act upon approving the renewal of the following one victualling only license to include renewal of the extended hours of operations as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances. This is from Mary Lou's Coffee, and extend hours of operation from 4:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. I declare this public hearing open.
I'm not sure how that makes sense.
I don't know what public hearing.
No, I mean, the time.
Is there
I
a reason
imagine-
behind the timing, Lynn? The times, 4:30 a.m. to 2:30 a.m., is there a reason?
Exactly. What's going on with you?
Should we amend that? All right. This is a public hearing. Anyone like to speak on this? Hearing none. Public hearing's closed. Pleasure of the council.
With the amendment, do you want to fix, it's the time, she did the time wrong.
With the amendment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. On to licenses. Item A, consider, discuss, and act upon approving the renewal of 7 entertainment licenses as listed as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances.
Mr. President, I'd like the Trap North Brew Pub and Grill to be considered separately.
For the, okay.
For the motion.
So I'd move that we approve the renewal of the entertainment licenses for all of the businesses listed, except for the Trap North
Second.
Brew Pub and Grill.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then consider, discuss, and act upon approving the renewal of 1 entertainment license as listed as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances, and this is for the Trap North Brew Pub and Grill.
And Mr. Martucci, the president and owner of the Trap, is here to answer any questions from the council and in the discussions based on the conversations about the outdoor speakers and the time. And I'll let Mr. Martucci talk about it, but was in full support of that in our conversations. DJ, do you mind coming up, please, sir?
Thomas J. Martucci, president of Trap North Brew Pub and Grill.
Aye.
Thanks for having me.
I don't have any questions.
Did you want to just go over, I mean, I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I talked with Mr. Martucci about those restrictions, about making sure that the outdoor speakers are shut off Sunday to Thursday.
Yeah, I think that, we've had complaints about the noise. I think it travels across the lake and disturbs the residents, mostly on West Cottage. And they've asked that the outside sounds be restricted after 10 o'clock on weeknights because, they and their children are having trouble going to sleep, and then, they have to get up, go to work, and the children have to get up to go to school. So we've had several residents complain about the loud noise. So I'm thinking that we would want to condition the granting of the entertainment license on the turning off of the outside speakers at 10 p.m. on weeknights.
And the only other piece I would just ask, Mr. Council Vice President, was that we were talking about on the day before a holiday to allow that in the situation. I know the manager had brought that up, and I think that's
Right, on
fair, 'cause it's-
weeknights except on the day before a holiday. Okay.
Not a problem.
We thank you for being accommodating and working with us to
Of course.
keep everyone happy. We really appreciate it.
We've tried our best to be proactive. Your police chief has been tremendous. We've tried to schedule some, I guess, proactive noise readings. I've asked that if they could to share the model, make and model of the noise meter so we can have our own noise meter. And we've asked for those readings to be taken independently of any type of complaints. I apologize that you'd have to receive any such calls whatsoever. But as I said, we've tried to be proactive. We've experimented with shutting certain doors, but certainly at a minimum, logically, it makes sense to absolutely shut those speakers off. And in fact, the ambient noise from just from inside the building is more than enough for people that are sitting on the deck to enjoy themselves and relax. They don't need any kind of direct music.
Yeah, I think there was a, I think that perhaps it wasn't realized how much the lake causes the sound to travel. And I think that's the real reason for this problem.
Yeah, the only thing I mentioned is that no situation is dummy proof. If I have a manager and assistant general manager that doesn't follow their duties, if it happens to get left on, I can do my best, obviously, to try to dummy proof it. We do have a control 4 system in place that has scenes and times to it. And so I am going to work with my sound company to have those speakers, just that zone be absolutely just shut off and overridden, just in case the manager doesn't do their job.
Great.
But at some point, the human intervention does come into it.
Have you gotten the information from the police department that you requested?
I have not seen the actual readings, other than the fact that there was a little bit of miscommunication. I had asked for a specific meeting. They said, you call, you schedule it, they'll show up when you need to. This was from your chief. And then when I talked to the gentleman that was on for the night, they said, well, we can't come when you want us to. We'll come when we're available. They came and took their own readings without me there, and all I got back was that everything checked out fine, but I wasn't there to physically get the readings, or I don't know what the numbers are.
How about the piece of equipment that they use so you can buy it?
Still haven't gotten it.
Still haven't gotten it. When did you ask for that?
I'd have to look at my
In the
text-
summer?
I'd have to look at my text messages. Actually, when we first opened, 2 days after opening, I saw a bunch of chatter on the Smithfield page and about people complaining about noise, so I tried to get ahead of it, and I called a meeting with the chief. He came down. We did a walkthrough in the morning before we opened. And that's when we discussed about trying to be proactive and doing some voluntary readings. I believe they came and did the readings, but unfortunately I wasn't present because they didn't tell me when they were coming.
But the information you requested, the machine, you haven't got any of that?
I haven't, but again, I think it's just a form of miscommunication. They have been fantastic. They have been unbelievable.
For me, it's only a yes or a no.
No, I have not.
Thank you very much.
But the reading part was the conversation that we had, and I owed him to put it in the format to give him the timing and the exact readings and the location. So that's actually on me from when we met the other day.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but there's a reason for my question.
It's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Was that? No. Pleasure of the council?
Who passes with the amendment?
And to be clear, the amendment is that the outside speakers will be turned off on all weeknights, except for those nights that occur before a holiday.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item B, consider, discuss, and act upon approving the renewal of 4 special dance licenses as listed as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances.
Full passage.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consider, discuss, and act upon approving the renewal of 5 vitrilene only licenses as listed as applied, to subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances.
Full passage.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item B, consider, discuss, and act upon approving a new holiday sales license for James Fine Cigars LLC, DBA James Fine Cigars, located at 20 Cedar Swamp Road, as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item E, consider, discuss, and act upon approving a one-day beer and wine license for the Smithfield Senior Center for a New Year's party on January 18th, 2024.
Move passage.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Old business, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing the fire department to purchase ballistic protective equipment from Triage Training Group in the amount not to exceed $49,864.25. This is to be funded from the Bryant University billing account.
Good evening, Chief Seltzer. I know you were made aware of this, I think we did in December, unfortunate situation where some of the equipment we purchased was actually faulty, and the company who was responsible for it has actually been charged, and somebody, the owner's going to prison, charged by the federal government. And as I had indicated, there is a potential to get recoup some of our money with some of the assets he has, but the federal prosecutor dealing with that case is not very hopeful. There's going to be a lot to go around, unfortunately. With that being said, we did go out and we looked at several different companies. And the company you have in front of you, you have the quote we received from the company to replace all of our equipment, in addition to providing some training to go along with that, not only for the use of the equipment, but also for tactical incineration. We're going to include the police department with this as well as part of that price. So if we happen to get some money back, certainly that can go back into the Bryant Fund if we're lucky enough to get something. Unfortunate situation. The federal government, local police departments, fire departments, border patrol, a lot of people got hooked on this one. So
thank you.
Move passage.
We have a second?
Second, discussion, this is coming from the Bryant billing account.
Correct.
Okay, so it's, doesn't affect our taxes?
no, that's a separately funded
It's a
account.
separate fund.
Yeah, from the EMS and fire and police billing.
This is the company, the only company that had what you needed, correct? I'm sorry, I was talking.
We looked at several different companies and we got pricing, and for the type of equipment we were looking for, the manufacturer's representative is this company only in Rhode Island, so they're a sole source vendor.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item B has been withdrawn, am I correct? Okay. Item B is not on the agenda anymore, withdrawn. New business, item A, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing the fire department to purchase a resource management software from Tablet Command, Inc. in the amount of $38,500.00 to be funded by RIEMA grant 34-02-2022 HSGP.
As stated on the memo to the town council, this is a grant with no match, completely funded by Rhode Island Emergency Management Agency, and it's actually an application for our dispatch center to track resources that actually show them when they're responding and show up on the incident commander's iPad in the field, so they can be assigned. We're also going to use it for our regional dispatchers. We're Northern Control, and we help with mutual aid throughout the northern part of Rhode Island. So. And I did indicate on here, because I know there was an ending date, but it's been extended for 6 months because we're having some issues with the interface with our CAD system, but they're being worked out.
Do you have a similar device now?
No.
This is
we-
completely new.
This is no, yeah.
Move passage.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Item B, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing the fire department to submit a municipal public safety infrastructure grant in the amount of $1 million to be used to assist in financing a new fire station.
So this item, as indicated on your memo, we're working with Lisa Andozier on this. She's completing the application, working with myself, the planner, and the town manager. This is a municipal public safety infrastructure grant that was put in the governor's budget for this year. There's $11 million in that particular program. And a individual project that we have is eligible for $1 million based upon, we met with Lisa on Monday. We meet all the criteria for the program. So we're putting together the final package so that we should be able to get $1 million towards our fire station project. And there's that possibility of getting more depending upon how many people actually apply. But we do meet the criteria for $1 million.
The matching amount is the $4.5 million bond. Do we have to match that whole $4.5 million?
No.
Usually a match is 1-to-1, right?
Correct, and it's actually, there's not a matching requirement on this.
There is no matching
No,
requirement.
but it was showing that there was definitely skin in the game. That was the point of stating that necessarily, whether or not we're using all the bond money or if there's additional funds or something to that extent instead, it doesn't need to be the bond dollars. It was just trying to show that the town was putting the stake in the game to balance out the cost.
So if we got money from another source, that would be no problem.
Correct. But either way, it wasn't so much that we definitely have to put that in. So there's a lot of flexibility with it.
Move passage.
Second.
Any more discussion?
I just had a question. If it's, I always like to ask, what we're getting free money, what are the strings? Are there any other strings aside from we have?
No, so this is actually APRA left, I don't want to call it leftover, but the end of the APRA money.
Oh, I
And
see.
the governor put $11 million in his budget.
Okay.
This past budget. So, yeah, it's to help the communities offset their costs is the purpose of the program.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't have a fire station project yet. So if we get the money, that would affect the scope of the do we have to present a project to get the
Correct,
grant?
and there is, and it's the full design of it and everything is included in there with the budget and everything that has to do with it.
And is that the project which, that's the project with the company?
No.
No. Which project is this? Because
So
it's
this
been
is
going back and forth.
Correct. This is because of the issues with the location. We're submitting with this to be the actual build of a smaller station, but the chief can explain it a little bit better.
And that would be on the land that we already purchased?
Correct. Right. Or get another donation of land.
Or another, right. So we don't have to put it there either.
No, the basic fire station the design will go wherever it ends up, but if another piece were to be donated, it could go there or can go where we already own.
The only requirement is that the $1 million is expended by December 31st of 26. That's the only restriction to it.
You'll spend it. A good way. All right.
All set? Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion.
It is a thing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item C, sitting as the Smithfield Water Supply Board, consider, discuss, and act upon a bid award for the North Providence Pressure Reducing Project.
Good evening, Gene Allen, Water Commissioner. Before you this evening is the results of the bid for the North Providence Pressure Reducing Project. The low bidder is Boyle and Fogarty, and as you'll see, the majority of the funds, the total contract cost is $826,000. The majority of it, $790,000, will be from an existing SRF bond that we received, the balance of what we used to rehabilitate 2 of the water tanks, and then the balance would be taken out of the reserve funds.
Thank you.
What's the add alternate one?
So the add alternate one is Bicentennial Way. We are in discussions with Providence Water Supply at this point, as the potential is that we could switch that particular location and give that to Providence Water Supply, and we would take over a section of lines within Smithfield that would be about equal as far as revenue and footage. The reason for that is Providence Water is looking to install another line down Bicentennial Way. My understanding, when that was installed, it goes around the ledge that's in that road as opposed to a straight line. So we would probably encounter several breaks if they were going to go and install another water line down that area. So it just makes sense. They ran it through the hydraulic model. Our existing line would satisfy their needs to service a particular area. So I'm still waiting to hear back from them, but that's in play right now as far as discussion. So I didn't want to award that portion of it. If that falls through, I'll be back in front of you asking for this additional amount.
Thank you.
Move passage.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Item D, sitting as the Smithfield Water Supply Board, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing the town manager to enter into contract with Pear Corporation in an amount not to exceed $50,500.00 for contracted engineering services for the North Providence pressure reducing project.
This would be for the administrative and engineering costs associated with the project that you just approved. The actual cost is $55,500. The reason that is as low as it is we're going to do all the in-house inspections with our staff to cut down on the amount of time that we would pay an engineering firm out there. But they'll be doing the shop drawing review, material review, pay apps, review of all that. So.
Thank you. Move passage.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item E, consider, discuss, and act upon awarding a contract to Lake Shore Environmental in an amount not to exceed $13,500.00 for installation of 3 test wells on site at the Gallagher Middle School.
I just asked Angelo to come up if he can explain it a lot better than I can. Plus, it's tough to hear me. I know that already.
Good evening, Angelo Mancucci, Smithfield School Department. This is a result of, we removed 2 12,000-gallon oil tanks from Gallagher Middle School on May 15th. Gill Services performed that service for us. The tanks were intact, but there was a small amount of oil that was found around the fill ports of each tank. At that point, DEM was on site, and we had an environmental engineer of record, which was Lake Shore, that was working for Gill Services. Less than 6 yards of contaminated soil was removed from the site with a manifest, but this is the basic DEM project. When you go forward, when you have a spill, this is the minimum requirement, is that at least 3 test wells and at least a quarterly test. Even on the samples that were taken, it was just slightly elevated, but this is the basic form that comes forward from DEM to remain compliant to their standard.
Okay.
Have these proposals been looked at by the town engineer?
The town engineer has been in the discussions with us. It's the requirement, unfortunately, was laid out specifically by DEM, and I'm 99% sure that Kevin reviewed what was decided by DEM to make sure that we're.
I mean, my question is that we're being asked to obviously pick the lowest bidder, and I'm wondering if the
quality.
Sometimes the lowest bidder isn't the best.
Correct, but we are.
So
no, exactly.
That's why I'm asking this.
No, and we're very familiar with Lake Shore, and we're very comfortable with them. They've actually worked with us on numerous other projects, and it's definitely the best route to go for the best bang for our buck, too, and we're not losing anything on the service and quality end. I know exactly what you mean, because that's usually what happens when we.
If I could speak to that, Mr. Rossi, Lakeshore did a phenomenal job. They are in service. They are in town in service, and went above and beyond with representing. We had meetings with DEM prior to this letter, and went above and beyond for the service of the town.
Now, how is this related to the Boyle Athletic Complex at the high school?
So it has to do with the whole project is called the Boyle Athletic Complex project. So the different components one is the field, that whole project. Second is the Honeywell portion, which is to do with the boilers and everything, and that's where this came out from. And then as well as the rooftop units at both of the schools as well.
As well as the what?
We had the rooftop.
Rooftop units.
The fresh
Rooftop
air
units,
intake units on both of the schools. So it's really three components, and that's where it falls into that and why it's called that. I think it's just the easy name that carried with it.
And this is also a result of the gas conversion that occurred at Gallagher Middle School.
So it comes from those funds, basically, the funds
Correct.
that were set aside for all these projects.
Correct.
Partially with the ARPA money and partially with the school fund balance.
Correct, as well as the energy loan.
The energy loan, right.
Correct.
Move passage.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item F, consider, discuss, and act upon approving tax abatements in the amount of $4,332.78.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is public comment. If you'd like to comment, you need to come up and state your name and your address.
Good evening, Council President. Paul Santucci, 10 Appletown Road. Council President, Town Manager Rossi had indicated to residents of Hawthorne Road that a private company is submitting a proposal to construct a building on town land. Respectfully, I am presenting to the clerk 93 signatures on a petition asking the council to not consider Deerfield Park for an indoor soccer complex, whereas we oppose an indoor soccer complex being built in Deerfield Park, where we are opposed to the facility being built in residential zones. Affected neighborhoods are zoned R20, and where traffic areas are to be affected are already under heavy use because of Deerfield Park, especially Indian Run Trail and Wampum. Whereas traffic studies have not been completed, whereas the town of Smithfield is not a for-profit enterprise and is not in the soccer business, whereas the quality of life will be permanently and negatively impacted, and where abutters have not been notified of any such development, and whereas it is our understanding that the development is to be located on town property by a private enterprise, and whereas a private enterprise should purchase its own land and create its own physical structure, creating its own financing, having its own parking, not burdening the town resources, et cetera. And whereas this proposal has not gone before planning or zoning, we ask the Smithfield Town Council to promptly vote no on this proposal. There are wetlands delineations that have been completed in this area. Hundreds of homes will be affected by this, including 44 homes on Indian Run and Wampum, and dozens on other streets leading into the park, including Deerfield Drive, as well as my own neighborhood. The other questions that I have is, are there deed restrictions in the park that would not allow private developers from building? And then lastly, was there an initial prohibition in the bond for Deerfield Park that would prohibit such enterprise, private enterprise, from building in there? That is it. The area is not a proper location for a commercial building, and the clandestine nature of this has hundreds of people concerned about public safety. So I'd like to give this to the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hello, I'm Shannon DiPetrillo, 17 Lodgepole Lane in Greenville. Hi, everybody. So, I'm a little nervous, right? But I think I speak for a lot of people in this room, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of families that I know. Paul and my husband have been speaking, and in regards to the building that they're speaking of, the indoor soccer complex. So we're living on Lodgepole Lane, and I can physically see the area through my back window. And that is up for debate in regards to the building. I know I speak for myself and a lot of the families here, but on that street alone, we have about 13 children. Most of them are under the age of 13, that all play in that road, all play in the street. And I believe that, opening up any sort of indoor soccer complex or anything that would increase traffic in the area would directly endanger the lives of the children on that street. My husband and I have been residents of the town for about 9 years. A lot of young families that live near me also purchased their homes because we are on a very quiet road. We all have children. It's like the 80s. They're all on the street, they're on their bikes, they're playing basketball. And I feel like a complex such as what is being proposed would directly impact the quality of life of our children and our families. We came here about 9 years ago from North Providence to live on a quiet road. We lived through a cut-through street. We've also had another child since living here. And I feel like I speak for myself and the other families that it would negatively impact our life and the reason why we moved to this town. I do believe, I'm not, a zoning expert, but I do believe that something of this nature wouldn't be, condoned in a residential area. I do, ask that the board reconsiders the location of this building. Again, I know there's been a lot of zoning discussion tonight. That's not my expertise. I actually work in school lunch. But I do know that there are other areas that could be, looked into and developed for a complex like this. My children don't play soccer, but I do have young children. I do see the benefit of a building like this, but I just do not think that this location would be beneficial for anybody that lives in the area. So I would appreciate every consideration of the location. Thank you very much.
Just for the record, we have no proposal.
Mhm.
It was a concept. We have nothing in front of us. We have nothing in writing, just a concept.
Yeah, I think.
And the letters that went out
Mhm.
to the neighbors,
Mhm.
I kind of question where all that information came from, because most of that information was discussed in closed session.
Mhm.
So what I think I'm going to do tomorrow
Mhm.
is call the AG's office and try to find out where all that information was leaked from.
Yeah, I think that would be a great place to start. I think that information like that, even if you don't have a proposal, even something in regards to, a thought process or kind of like, an under wraps proposal, something like that should be brought to everyone's attention, not just the residents, but to you folks as well. Absolutely.
When we get a proposal, it will be vetted through the planning, the zoning if it needs to.
Mhm.
The questions that Mr. Santucci asked the town manager, we'll find out the answers to that, and we'll move forward.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
fantastic.
and a proposal like this would have to be approved, obviously, by the town council itself, and we would have a public hearing on it. But as Councilman Tassoni says, we have not received a formal proposal. A concept was showed to us a long time ago. Was it in July?
Last year.
Yeah, it was last,
have
it was in
nothing.
July, it was several months ago. And, my wife and I went and we walked the property, we walked your neighborhood, and I understand what you're saying, believe me.
Yeah, and not only that,
There's a little path at the end of your street that goes in there, we're aware
Yeah,
of that, and,
yeah.
we have no intention of disturbing that neighborhood under any circumstances, believe me.
And it's
because-
not for selfish reasons either. We have the middle school and the high school track meets, both meet in that area, that location. They practice through there. They have other towns come and they have meets through that location. So it would disrupt kind of some other recreational activities as well. So I'd appreciate if that wouldn't go through, even if the proposal does come to fruition.
It's important to note the town of Smithfield did not propose this at all. Just want the neighbors to know that. And if it ever transpired, anything ever came up, it would be transparent. That's how we've been, it's open government. That's how we operate here, so.
Yeah, and it's
Rest
much
assured, you would
appreciated.
be notified if something actually came to us.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Mr. President, Paul Santucci, 10 Appletown Road, just for the record, doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what was actually going on. There were two discussions that Mr. Rossi had with two residents on Hawthorne Road, and that immediately got out into the neighborhood, and it is deeply disturbing to everyone that lives within that area. There's hundreds of people that would be affected. So there is absolutely no way that I discussed this with anyone on the council, and I wouldn't. So, thank you.
Did you mention someone?
I didn't mention anybody. Guilty conscience, I guess.
Tom Hodgkins, 200 Fernham Pike. On April 4th, 2023, I sent a letter to the council before the public hearing where the council voted to rezone about 60 properties in town, one of those parcels being the Deerfield Park property that's being talked about tonight. This, whatever the concept is, an indoor sports facility, whatever it would have been, wouldn't have been allowed prior to the council's rezoning last year. The rezoning expanded it created an open space district and expanded that definition to include things like indoor sports facilities, restroom facilities, exhibition space, maintenance building, and, quote, other facilities for educational or instructional purposes. The zoning change that you made also allowed those uses by right. So there will never be a zoning hearing for any of the neighbors here if there's going to be a complex to come and voice their opinion, because that's allowed by right. So it's not going to planning, it's not going to zoning. Perhaps the council may vote on a ground lease with a developer, but that's it. There's going to be no
It
consideration.
comes here.
It's a major land
The town
development
council
project,
has to approve it
And-
at a public hearing.
To lease town property.
The lease,
Council will-
the lease alone.
Well, the council would have to approve it, and as far as any prospective build-out, it'd be considered a major land development project, which would require a public hearing at the planning board.
What I said was the use is allowed by right.
But it still has to go through,
It's not going to go to the zoning board.
no, it's going to planning board.
And the only purview that the council would have would be to vote on a lease. That was not allowed before the zoning change. And the letter that I wrote to you said on page 3, section 3, one size does not fit all in the open space district. And what I warned you against is precisely what's going to happen now. I said, among other things in my letter to the council, that the open space district attempts to impose a one-size-fits-all zoning district on properties used in very different ways. I noted that, for instance, an indoor sports facility such as a hockey rink or a field house would be inappropriate to build on these lands. And that's what's being proposed. It's inappropriate for a number of reasons. One is these are residential neighborhoods. Two is this is open space. It's not to be developed for uses. And the purported reason for the zone change in April of 2023 was to comply with the comprehensive land use plan to put in open space zoning. What did the comprehensive land use plan say about the open space zone? It said the open space, the primary intent of open space zone is to ensure that land preserved as open space or recreation is not developed or used for other purpose. So if the intent of the comprehensive land use plan was to protect open space and for it not to be developed, then why did the change to the zoning allow for, among other things, indoor sports facilities, restroom facilities, exhibition space, maintenance buildings, and other uses, and allow those uses by right, not even by special permit? I think the council should revisit this and at least put in a special permit requirement so that neighbors like this can go to a hearing, a zoning hearing, and address their concerns about the use of the property. I also brought up at that hearing that in my view, the notice provided to the abutters of that land was insufficient. The town did not provide specific written notice of the rezoning of that land to the abutters. I brought that up. The town disagrees with me on that. But if there's anybody at this hearing that likely would have gone to the rezoning hearing in April of 2023 had they received specific written notice, then perhaps you should consider what your remedies may be. I also noted that the town should reconsider the position it takes on providing notice to residences, and instead of taking a restrictive view on the notice it provides, that it would take a more open view and provide notice as being a good neighbor in town. Finally, with respect to this issue, one of the areas that was also rezoned was Camp Shepherd. And I've brought up to this council before that for several years now, when Camp Shepherd was purchased, everyone was told that there were going to be protections on that property, that there might be a conservation easement or something along those lines to protect that property from being developed. To date, several years later, nothing has been done to protect that property. And the same thing could happen at Camp Shepherd, an indoor sports facility used by right, if that's what this council or some other council decided to do, or a lease, or even if the town decided to do it for their own. So I'd again ask the council to take up the issue of the use of Camp Shepherd. It was my understanding that the Camp Shepherd subcommittee was created with priority number one of determining what the use of that land was going to be. And that doesn't seem to come up much on the agendas of that committee, and certainly that committee hasn't reported back to the council with any recommendation on the use of that for the council to consider. So I'd ask that you consider amending this open space zoning to limit the uses at least by special permit so that people can come and let the zoning board consider their concerns for projects like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to get up?
Anti-council uniform one trail. When that park was put in, our street wasn't supposed to be used to go into the park. And then the town council at the time decided that Deerfield Drive was getting too much traffic, so they opened our street. So now we got the senior center, we got the baseball field, we got the kids walking home from school, and in the morning, we got all the parents taking their kids to school. We can't even get out of our driveways. This place does not belong in that park. There is no sports complex that I ever seen put in the middle of a residential area where you have to go through 9 million side streets to get to it. It's not our fault that the town council at the time put a park that was landlocked, that you have no way of getting in unless you go through side streets. I will get a lawyer and fight this tooth and nail if you put it in, just letting you know.
Kenneth Souza, 2 Williams Road, also on the Budget Financial Review Board. So I'm going to come at it from a different angle. Some people may not be happy with me, but you know me pretty well. I call balls and strikes. Okay, I call it straight down the middle. Here's what concerns me about this. Different from what people have just said. And I've discussed this with the town manager and probably some of you. On the Budget Financial Review Board, we're trying to find money. Okay? We're trying to find money. I'm trying to get that man over there, and he knows how hard I work to try to get him more money. Thank God we got a safer grant to pay for it. And we are hopefully, and you know, we're going to have a better force, hopefully with less injuries and less. It's a win-win-win. And he knows that. And I've tried to get him money too. Okay, that's on the record. I've tried to get the police chief more money for more police officers out in the field. But I'm exhausted with what I call the shiny bauble syndrome of adopting things that are ribbon cutting events. I don't have any problem with it, but we've got a capital problem. And I'm going to make a big deal about it this year on the Budget and Financial Review Board. We've got to be careful about our infrastructure. Look at that plan. We have a lot of deferred maintenance. I'm concerned that we do these things which adds infrastructure to the town, which then we got to upkeep. And I'm not going to name the projects because I'll get labeled in the press. But we need to be concerned about that, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we've only got 5 members on this board. I'm already tired now. Forget about a couple of months from now when we're going to go into budget season. I asked this council, and across the street too, the shiny bauble syndrome has to be constrained. We can't pay for everything and get these people for roads and officers and EMT officers so that we have the town that's safe and our roads are safe as well. That's what I'm trying to do. And we're going to have to find a lot of money this year. I don't know where we're going to find it, but I'm going to try. But if we keep doing things like this, all we are going to do is increase our infrastructure costs and get that accomplished.
Like what? We don't even have a proposal.
No, I understand. This is public comment.
That's the problem.
I'm just saying a policy. That's all I'm sort of saying, that we have to just be careful of our infrastructure costs. That's what I swore to do as a fiduciary on that board, is to try to help you guys find money for public for public, for the police, fire, and so on. That's what I'm trying to do. So all I'm asking you to do is have some, I won't call it restraint, because I'm not saying that. I'm not saying any of the projects that were done were poor. But there's a cost of infrastructure. And it will come to bite us because we're juggling too many balls in the air. So like I said to you at the beginning of this conversation, I'm coming at it from a different conversation. Because we're the ones, with all due respect, we're the ones that are doing the heavy lifting so that you take only 90 seconds to approve the budget, which we did a couple of years ago. No, we did a couple of years ago. No, seriously, because we are doing those heavy lifting to try to provide you with all that data. We had the fastest public hearing. The president said that a couple of years ago. I'm proud of that. And I hope you are too. We've just got to can't juggle so many balls in the air. I love this town. It's not my birth town, but that's all I'm suggesting. We got to be careful of infrastructure in terms of what we are burying ourselves with. If the windows fall out, that moves up to the top of the list. That's what I always use, okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to get up and speak?
Hi, Michelle Montero, 11 Lodgepole Lane. Just a question. I can see the sand dunes from my house, and I walk those woods fairly often, and I feel like the woods have reduced, and I can hear the noise from Deerfield. So not sure if something's happening with the town trucks reducing the woods there, but I see orange trucks there.
The vehicles that have been there all have to do with the fill that was removed from the football field that's down the pathway at the end of that side road. And then we noticed that it's blocking drainage, so you'll see some more work that we need to remove the material, putting a swill in so that the water can go through with the rain coming as we speak. So there's nothing going on in the back of the woods.
So there's no reduction of trees or woods?
No, definitely not.
Do you see any fresh stumps or anything?
We've only lived here for 6 years, and I remember there was a lot of woods, and then over the years, it's just a lot more open space, a lot of tire tracks. We thought it was ATVs running through the woods because I would hear that stuff. But then, again, I just noticed more open space and more noise coming from Deerfield. So that's why it gets concerning for the neighbors. So.
Let's put it this way, it's nothing planned of clearing, so. But I will look into the additional noise and stuff.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, friends. Larry Filippelli, 7 Hawthorne Road. I'm not exactly sure what's being proposed. There's no proposal, obviously, that's out there yet, but there's a lot of concern. I literally abut the park, lived there for many years now, since 08. So I love the noise in the park. I love the kids, love hearing all that. My youngest has been involved in soccer for 90 years in this town. Obviously, a facility like this is really not going to be welcome. There's also, and aside from everything that's been said, there's light pollution, there's all sorts of concerns. However, if you did want to take up a consideration like this, I would just implore you to work in conjunction with the school department, because if you're talking about funding and you're looking for funding for something like this, if the town and the school department take it on, you're looking at currently a 52 to 57% reimbursement from the state of Rhode Island on school construction. If you make that an educational facility and you create a facility that serves the needs of the kids in the school department, and then it can be used at off times for the things that you want to use it for, you're not only going to get the reimbursement, you'll get the facility, you'll put it likely on a piece of land that's most closely associated with the schools, rather than upsetting many neighbors in the beautiful, serene area of Deerfield Park. So it's just something to consider downrange, that if a proposal like this were to come forward, you may want to consider going the school route, because you can do both. You can have a school facility. It has to be used for school purposes mostly, but you could probably kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get 52% reimbursement on your investment. And that money comes back into the town. So just a consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Joe Walker, 64 Indian Run Trail. And when I moved here 30 years ago, Deerfield Park was a sand pit. So my two sons and I would walk down there and look at nature and really enjoy the open space. When the park was proposed, I was extremely enthusiastic about it. In fact, I couldn't imagine they could grow grass in that type of sand. My boys played soccer there. My younger son was involved in the Smithfield tennis program, so we played tennis there. It's been a godsend for our neighborhood. The downside, as Anthony had said, has been the traffic. I live on the corner of Indian Run Trail and Wampum. My picture window looks out at the road. On a weekend there, if you have a soccer tournament, there's parking on the grass, parking all over, and they're running through the stop signs in my neighborhood to the point where I've called the chief of police many years ago because I was so afraid somebody was going to get T-boned. My point is that any further development within Deerfield, be it this, a concept, whatever the case may be, let's keep it open and enjoyable for everybody. We don't need any more types of facilities that are going to cause really bad traffic situations in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, Mario Montero, 11 Lodgepole Lane. So more of a comment. Pretty surprised to hear that the proposal hasn't been put in place. So this recently became a hot topic in Facebook, and several people were talking about it with intimate knowledge. Square footage was being shared, maps were being shared. So that's why for residents, it seemed like something that was pretty far along, which is why many of us came here today. So I don't know who knows what, but there's a lot more information out there that maybe you guys might be aware of, which is why so many people are concerned. So because the first thought is how far along is this that we're not aware of? So I'm glad to hear that there's no proposal, but it seems that there's a lot more conversation has taken place, a lot more planning of it has happened that might be known to all. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Anyone else? Thank you all for coming.